From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
Welcome back. This is the very enthusiastic Dewey Pod Monster podcast. This is the original podcast about consumption, and with me this week is the host of the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. His name is Sean. He's also the authority on Michigan craft beer. Sean, how are you doing today?
Just chasing down my clones. No big deal.
That's not super effective. Are you sure they're that you're chasing the clones, or that the clones are chasing
me? Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not really quite sure.
Yeah. So sounds like we have a topic today, but let's get to that later. So did you get around to watching Second Chance?
No.
God damn it.
No, I didn't, but I did. So I did watch that. We kind of hit on it last week, the Dusty Rhodes WWE documentary. Yeah. I did watch that because we got to get our wrestling couple minutes in for the week. That was a really good one. I know that you watched it. I was kind of surprised. Like, I didn't know all that much about Dusty Rhodes. Like, I knew about his WWE and the American Dream and taking out the garbage and being the kind of caricature of himself. But a lot of the other career stuff I didn't know. And he's always been a big guy, huh?
Yeah, I'm going to be totally, calling myself out here, but I didn't know his kid was Gold Dust.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I knew that.
So, but I had stopped kind of watching by the time Gold Dust came around. I saw him, I was like, what is this, Gold Sting now or something? What are we doing here? So,
I didn't realize that there was that much, family contention between the two of them. That much animosity. Well, I guess it's not really animosity. They just it was just kind of
like it was only there for a couple years.
Yeah, about 5 years or so. And I knew that his other son, Cody, right? Cody Rhodes? Yeah. I knew that he was his son, obviously. But it's I noticed that Dusty Rhodes influenced all his kids eventually to bleach their hair because the two sons still had blonde hair. Like Cody Rhodes,
yeah,
he has roots most of the time, but Dustin Rhodes, aka or Dustin Runnels, I guess, aka Gold Dust, he still bleaches his hair. It's short as hell. It's short as our hair, but he bleaches it.
He looks like he has a bald cap on that is somehow blonde hair.
Yeah, it's really fun. I mean, good for him. Weird. He's got a full head of hair underneath all that stubble. But yeah, so I watched that, and then I've been watching, and I don't know if I mentioned it before, I finally, because I like to watch things a year or two after everybody else is done talking about them, I started finally watching Welcome to Wrexham on Hulu. So if you're...
I know of it. I haven't...
If you're unfamiliar, Rob McElhaney and Ryan Reynolds buy a football team in Wrexham, Wales, and it's basically about them trying to get this in soccer, in English football, I guess, football, whatever. In that sport, footy, they have leagues, especially in England, where they have the Premier Leagues, the top league, they have the Champions League, they have National League, and when you get to the top, you can be relegated, you can be promoted or relegated down. So this team that they bought has kind of been on hard times for a little bit. That's hard times. They've kind of been on hard times for a little bit. And they're trying to help, they buy the team. They want to help promote them into the next league because then you get bigger profit sharing, bigger money is involved. You can hire players, I guess, in the National League that they're in. All the players have to be English. They can't have any foreign players in that specific league. So it kind of goes through not only the day-to-day kind of running of the business, of the soccer business, but the team and the town that they're in. And they have little sides where they talk about hooliganism and stuff like that. It's just an interesting series so far. I think I've got 2 episodes back.
I like the word hooliganism.
Hooliganism, yeah. And they talk about the history of hooligans. I don't like Ryan Reynolds much at all. His kind of smarmy persona, I'm kind of over. I've been over it for a long time. He's tolerable, and the thing is that they don't show Rob and Ryan all that much. I mean, it is obviously because they're attached to it. It's this big deal, right? But they don't focus all that much on them, so it's tolerable. If you don't like either one of those two guys, it's tolerable because there's enough going on around the outskirt of the show that they're not constantly in your face. So that's really, besides what we watched today, that's really all the time I've had to watch anything this week.
That show's still on, isn't it?
No, the final episode was, I think, late last year, and they haven't said if they're going to make another season or not.
I like Michael Honey mostly because I love It's Always Sunny, which we've gone over probably ad nauseum at this point. Reynolds is okay. I mean, even though I'm very much so a anti-Marvel guy, I did enjoy the 2 Deadpool movies. I kind of doubt that I'll like the 3rd one because it's in, the Disney zeitgeist now. But
he's one of the few actors that have played in both DC and Marvel stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure he wants to forget about one of those, but
yeah, they joke about that.
Can't really,
it's funny.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything outside of the 2 Deadpool movies I really liked him in, or other than like little bit pieces here. Like, he seems to do the cameo game pretty well. Like, he'll pop up in a lot of places and then just be gone.
Yeah.
But as far as him being like a lead role or even like a support, like someone with actual time on screen, not just popping up, I can't really think of something that I really liked him in outside of those 2.
Yeah, like I said, the smarmy kind of character that he portrays in everything. Plus, he's like a gazillionaire now with selling Mint Mobile to T-Mobile, all that. Like, dude,
he bought.
You don't have enough going on in your life that make me feel bad about my life.
He bought a part of a payment processing company in Canada. I want to say FineTech. He's going to make money hand over fist. Like, he's basically making money off whoever uses credit cards now. Like, that's what that. So yeah, he's gonna be stupid rich, but I think good for him, I guess. So
fuck him.
Fair enough.
Should we talk about the beer? Should we talk about the beer real quick before I talk about my beer? You talk about your beer.
Yeah, we can talk about. We're drinking beer.
We are drinking beer. It's
not
Friday.
Monday.
We're recording on a Friday. Can't take a drink on that drinking game.
Yeah, that means we drink because we drink sometimes on Monday too. But
sometimes.
I don't know. Go ahead. You're the authority. Why don't you start? Neither of these are Michigan beers.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of betraying my audience here, but I am drinking a quintuple barrel Big Bad Baptist from Epic Brewing Company, and I believe they're in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, and Denver, Colorado. I was going to say, this goes a little bit outside the guidelines for a Utah beer. This is an 11.8% Imperial Stout aged in whiskey and brandy barrels with roasted cacao nibs, almond flavor, barrel-aged coffee, barrel-aged coconut, barrel-aged almonds, barrel-aged salt, and caramel flavor. This is from 2019. I figured this has been sitting in my fridge. I wanted to drink a beer tonight, and I figured I may as well go ahead and do one of these. Not a whole lot. It's not all that dynamic. I read all these things off here: whiskey, brandy, cacao nibs, almonds, blah, 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 blah. It just kind of tastes like a barrel-aged stout, and it's not all that kind of impressive, honestly. Maybe it's because it is from 3-4 years ago.
I was going to say, it sounds like it might have fallen off a little bit. Because I've had that one, and I remember it being a bit more of a punch. But I want to say it had a rum barrel, so maybe I had a different variant. And they make like 20 variants.
They make a ton of them.
And I want to say I had it like maybe only 3 years old as opposed to, 4 or 5 years old?
4, yeah.
Whatever that is.
Yep.
4. So I have a Imperial Midnight Snack Biscotti Break Stout with vanilla beans, coffee, and almonds. This is a collaboration from the fine folks at Evil Twin Brewing, which I believe is in New York primarily, and Abomination Brewing, which I have no clue where they're out of, so we're just going to say New York.
I thought they were out of Connecticut or something.
Okay, we can go with that. Oh, maybe it says here. Blah, blah, blah. North Haven, Connecticut. Looks
yes.
Good job.
Nice, thanks.
This was canned on March 28th last year, so this is just about a year old. And it's still just super rich. It's basically coffee, vanilla, and a little bit of like a cookie flavor in beer form. And it's got a really fun looking can, which no one else will see. So, fuck it. And then I also have a hams on deck because I'm sure I'll get through this and then open something else. So
I've got a water on deck.
I have a water too because you have to hydrate.
Yeah, stay hydrated when you're drinking.
So I watched a shitty movie this week, aside from our topic. Wait, well, that might or might not be a shitty movie. We'll save that. But I watched a real shitty movie this week. Like, arguably, like, we're talking Black Devil Doll from Hell, Paranormal Highway level shitty.
I am intrigued. Tell me more.
I watched The Reconciler, which is the Christian version of Saw.
I'm sorry, basically. What is it called?
The Reconciler.
What? How do you spell that?
Reconciler.
Isn't that just The Reconciler?
Sure. I don't know. They say it several times. It's a terrible fucking movie.
They call him the Reconciliar.
So you know how the whole premise of Saw, like, they have all these traps and people get all maimed and mutilated and whatnot, and it's supposed to be, if I remember right, like, oh, if you survive, you'll appreciate your life or some horse shit.
I'm sorry,
like
did you say manged?
Mangled.
Oh, mangled. I thought you said manged. I'm like, I have not heard that before.
Yeah. So essentially what this what's a good way?
Mangler?
This, I don't want to say person because it's not really, well, spoil, you know what, fuck it. Jesus locks people in a room and forces them to fucking, like, apologize to each other. That's basically what this movie is.
That's what Jesus does.
Version of Jesus is.
I mean, it sounds on brand.
It's fucking terrible. I was like, man, I hope just one person gets crucified or fucked up in this movie. The worst that happens is someone gets locked in a box and they let him out in the first, like, 10 minutes of the movie.
I said I was sorry. The end.
It's not even that good. It basically, like, half of it is like, I worship Christ, just not the same way you do, bro. Okay, bro. Oh, well, I guess we can get out now. Fuck you.
Tug it out.
Yeah,
How long was the movie?
Where? It felt like 7 hours. It's like an hour and a half. It's really fucking bad. Like, this was one of the most. This is one of the most miserable fucking movies I've ever watched, and I mean it. Oh, however, it does have Rowdy Roddy Piper in it.
Oh,
not
so
being
this
very
has to be
rowdy
like
at all.
2012 ish.
2015, 2016,
Oh, okay.
I think it was. Yeah. So
Wow.
It was a made-for-TV movie, apparently, which features Rowdy Roddy Piper being not rowdy at all.
What, they showed on Easter?
Sure. It's on Tubi for some reason in the horror section. I was like, there's nothing horrible about this other than the movie itself. So yeah, I can't recommend it enough. Don't watch The Reconciliar, Siler, whatever. It's fucking bullshit, and it's going to make you want to just go out there and do all the things the Bible tells you not to do. So,
Commit adultery.
Yeah, whatever.
Covet thy neighbor's wife.
I did watch it sober. That was half of the problem. So, you're on to coveting now, I see.
Yeah, I'm just gonna shut up. I'll let you talk.
There's not really much else to say. It's a bad fucking movie. So no one dies. No one even gets hurt. No one even loses like a toe. Nothing.
No eye for an eye.
Mm-mm.
That's like Old Testament stuff, though.
Yeah. And then right before we came on, I started watching. There's a couple new episodes of Beavis and Butthead on Paramount. So I started watching those. And I don't think you've watched the new ones, but if you've enjoyed the last season, there's no reason you wouldn't enjoy these. They're still two stupid kids getting into shenanigans. What else could be had, right?
Shenanigopolis and stuff. I don't even know. That's not even a word.
On to the fucking topic. So we're talking about this fucking movie Infinity Pool. This is a movie that is directed by Brandon Cronenberg. Not that Cronenberg. The young Cronenberg. Taller Cronenberg. Do you want to go over plot on this and I can do our review, then we can get into whatever?
Yeah, I'll read the really short summary because for some reason there's like 10 of them and some of them are like pages long. So I'm going to go with the short one and then we're going to fluff it up a little bit. We're going to be the fluffers of this movie a little bit to the full erection of the story, I guess.
This movie could have used a couple fluffers here and there.
James and M. Foster are enjoying an all-inclusive beach vacation in the fictional island of La Tolqa, when a fatal accident exposes the resort's perverse subculture of hedonistic tourism, reckless violence, and surreal horrors.
Sure. So, put it out there now. This is a release from 2023, so this is a pretty new movie. I haven't seen a whole ton of people talking about this. When it first came out, it got a little bit of buzz, and then it kind of has gone into the ether pretty quick. No pun intended there. But from henceforth, if we can't talk about the movie without talking about the movie, so you might hear some kind of spoilery stuff, and this review kind of touches on that a little bit. But
Tough
yes,
stuff.
So this movie, this fellow G. Francis gives this movie 1 out of 10 stars.
Oof.
Vile mess. No clue how it got made. We're off to a good start. Warning: I'm giving away the entire quote plot, if you can call it that. This starts out as a maybe passable foreign vacation gone wrong type of movie, but quickly devolves into complete nonsense. I cannot see why anyone would give this movie anything more than 2 stars. It's such a pile of trash. Again, so far this guy's selling the movie to me. I do appreciate inventing a fictitious country, complete with its own alphabet, yet everyone speaks perfect English. That makes sense, right? And this poor backwards country has the ability to make perfect clones of people in minutes over and over? Question. And the purpose of this is to kill the clones for the original person's crime and charge the person with a bunch of money. What? Why wouldn't you just find them? Don't even try to make sense out of this thing. There's sex, then gory violence, then sex, then some trippy video, then more gore, just random whatever. Even the ending is beyond stupid. Avoid at all costs.
You know, he brings up a good point that I didn't even think about until just now.
The English part?
No.
Oh.
So the movie, basically, Alexander Skarsgård, who until today, I didn't realize that he was the son of Stellan Skarsgård. Stellan Skarsgård has been in Thor. That's probably where most people recognize him from. He's been in, what is the Star Wars thing? What the hell is the newer one? Andor. He's in Andor. So if you've seen Andor, Stellan Skarsgård is that. I didn't realize it was his son. Anyways, I digress. The movie follows Alexander Skarsgård. He plays the character James. He's a writer. They go to this resort. They meet Mia Goth. James and his wife M meet Gabby, who's played by Mia Goth, and her husband. They're all staying at the same resort. She claims to be a big fan of his book that he hasn't had much success with. They go out on a day away from the resort, which everybody's like, hey, don't leave the resort. You know, the country's kind of shitty here and the police are shitty, so you don't want to leave the resort. Well, they decide they're going to leave the resort. He's peeing. She JOs him while he's peeing for some reason. You like the hand motion?
I like the choice of
JOing
phrase for that. Yeah.
They come back. As they're coming back, the husband, Mia Goth's husband, is too drunk to drive, so James is going to drive. He hits a guy as the lights are flickering on the car. He doesn't see him. It's an accident. And Mia Goth and her husband say, hey, listen, the cops here are so bad. Your wife will be raped tonight if we call the police. You will be thrown in jail and probably beaten. So why don't we just go back to the hotel, pretend like it never happened, and, you know, we'll live our lives and shit sucks. Sorry, local dude, but your murder will go unsolved. The next morning, the cops are at his door. They tell him, basically, they take him and his wife down to the cop shop. They say, listen, the custom in the law in this country says that if you kill somebody, their firstborn son now has the right to kill you. If they don't have a son, then the government will kill you. Sorry, shit sucks again. But we have a loophole. If you pay an exorbitant amount of money, we will create a double of you that shares all your memories, and then we execute the double. And it just so happens that James' wife is the daughter of a very rich and famous publisher. So they decide they're going to do the thing, and the kid comes out and he stabs the double to death because he's all tied up and shit.
Or does he?
Okay. Well, he kills somebody that looks like Alexander Skarsgård, as Alexander Skarsgård is in the audience, the gallery, watching himself be stabbed. And his wife is just appalled. And he gets a little smile on his face. It like lights something inside of him. The point that I'm getting to, the writer of the review that you read said, why do this country that's pretty poor, like, how do they have the technology to clone people? Why wouldn't they just, like, fine you? Which, yeah, why don't they just fine you and let you just do whatever the hell you want and they get the money?
Yeah.
All right. Movie over. The end. End of podcast. So give them roll out the credits. No, but.
So, go ahead.
No, that's all I had.
You know, we talk all the time about how we take notes on movies and stuff, like trying to make cognitive conversations out of this.
Yeah.
So I usually will do that. If I'm going to do this, it's usually somewhere more on the other end of the episode, but I'm going to do it now because of how this movie plays. It gives you a good idea. I wrote 2 notes down for this. After the first minute or so of the movie, I said, is Slipknot in this movie? Because they have a bunch of dudes in masks and coveralls dancing around and beating on drums and shit. Yeah,
it's part of the custom of whatever the holiday or whatever the season that they're in at this resort.
And then the only other thing I wrote down is, what the fuck did I just watch?
Did you really feel like that disconnected from what was going on in the movie?
No. Well, yes and no. So immediately after, like as soon as like we're at credit roll, like movie's done, like haven't sat and thought of it or anything at this point. My immediate thought was, what the fuck was all this? And I kind of felt that way, like, why did any of this happen? What's the point of all this? Like, where is this going? Like, that was my initial thought, like, my recurring thought through the whole time that I was watching this movie is, like, why and where is this going? Is essentially what I went to. Now, you know, it's been about a little over 24 hours since I finished it for me. Like, it had a whole day to kind of stew on it. I think this is actually a really, really good concept of a movie. Like, the idea, maybe not the whole, like, some of the very Cronenberg-esque type glop that we get to see on a regular basis through this movie, which if you like, you know, Cronenberg Sr., you'll feel right at home with that kind of stuff in here. But just the idea of like lawlessness run amok, I think this kind of explores that idea better than like a movie like The Purge, which I didn't really care for. You know, I think it does a better job of taking that idea of we could just buy our way out of trouble and seeing how far like people will push that, or exploring how far people will push that concept.
Yeah.
And it feels more realistic in that sense. Now, there's things obviously in this movie that happen that are probably not very realistic, but
like clones.
Just how it actually, I don't know. I feel like that's probably how they do it. Having no experience with any type of cloning at all other than watching movies where clones exist, I don't know, but I feel like you don't need to be covered in a tub of goo to make a clone, but maybe I'm wrong. No, the stuff like primarily some of the stuff that happens in these like random orgies that break out and some of the other bodily fluids that seem to plop all over the screen. That's the stuff I'm like, seems like it's getting a little excessive, but whatever. And I guess there is a extended cut that just has a lot more of that. Shocker. Where was I going here?
You didn't take many notes.
No, I didn't take many notes. But no, I do think the concept in this is really great. I mean, I can put it out there now. I don't know that the way this movie plays out, it's something that I'll ever want to go back to a second time, because I like to rewatch things, and I don't know that this is one that really lends to that at all. Rarely, if ever. And, you know, we've talked about the concept of like having a dark movie that's moody and all that type of shit. This movie is certainly that, but it didn't really bother me in that because it's just like fucked up enough to kind of keep you like watching it to go, where the fuck is this going? Like you want to see how it pans out, but it's also just kind of like, you know, dragged enough that you're like, I kind of don't really like watching this at the same time.
I've never seen a movie from Brandon Cronenberg. Like, I've never seen a movie he's directed or written. I think he's done at least one prior to this, but
you got one that was like Possession 2020, I think it was called. I didn't see it, but I think that's what it's called.
That sounds familiar from what I was reading, but it seems like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Like, the things that are kind of explored in this movie are very similar to things that David Cronenberg has explored in his movies as well. You know, we have there's not as much body horror as I would expect from a movie that has the name Cronenberg attached to it. Mm-hmm. But it explores some of the darker kind of concepts. Now, like the inverse of what you said, you had 2 notes written. I actually, as this movie played, I was writing paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. And it's not like concepts, you know, it's not like, oh, what about this? Or, oh, what about that? It's more like, for my sake, to kind of digest this movie, I took it upon myself to write a summary, basically, of the entire movie. So if I were to go back and look at this, what I wrote for my notes, I'm basically telling the entire story of this movie in my notes, which I felt...
It's interesting.
Yeah, I felt it was kind of helpful.
Like the whole... Well, it's interesting. We had the whole, like, total opposite reaction. It's like, you went into it, like, almost like a study, and I went into it, like, how do I ingest this and try to figure out what the hell I'm watching? We usually kind of have a similar, like, approach to style. Really any of these that we cover. So it's interesting that for whatever reason, this one kind of threw us in like 2 separate directions.
Well, to be fair, I think when we watched Kill Switch, I think I did the same thing. So
I don't know what you're talking about, man. What you need to watch?
We got to watch that Kill Switch again, bro. But and I remember my accent. I don't remember the Seagal accent that I put on. But like,
they're all bad. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. They're all shit. I mean, just like the real guy. But I just to kind of digest it, to be able to follow it. So I didn't really find it all that hard to follow. And I think it was probably because I was running this commentary, like this ongoing summarization in my head the entire time. It did take me a little bit at the beginning to kind of wrap my head around what was happening. Let's get a little bit deeper into the plot, right? So we mentioned that the doubles are there. The Skarsgård's double is killed by the person he killed's son. And then he doesn't really feel well.
Super, like, that's probably the most brutal scene in this whole movie.
Well, I'd say that dog scene at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Is probably the worst. And it's not a real dog, so if you are someone that's like averse to animal violence or animal cruelty, it's a person that they call the dog.
I'm 100% that guy, and I was like, when they said bring out the dog, I was ready to be like, oh shit, this is gonna ruin this whole movie.
What is this dog that you speak of?
Yeah, but when they brought it out, I was like, oh, it's just a human. Fuck him. So,
yeah, kill him.
Yeah. Anyway,
but like so he comes back and he doesn't feel well, and he goes and sees Mia Goth and her husband Albin, I think is his name in the movie. Her name's Gabby, and they go and visit them, and the husband and wife, James and his wife, Skarsgård and his wife, go visit them. They like still hang out for a little bit. Well, actually, I think she wants to leave. His wife wants to leave immediately, and James can't find his passport, and he's like, "Oh shit, I can't find my passport. I can't leave." And she's like, okay, well, we need to figure this out. And I think that he ends up going to the lobby to kind of plead his case about what can he do. He can't find his passport. They extend his stay. And then he sees Gabby in the lobby, and she takes him for a drink and kind of like calms him down and takes him up to her room. And that's where you discover that it's like this group of people that have all been cloned. Like they have all committed some kind of crime where the penalty was death, but they had themselves doubled, duplicated. And one of the characters asks James, do you think that maybe the double, that you're the double, and the clone, or I'm sorry, the original person who you were is the one that was actually killed? And that kind of sets this whole thing into motion. They start getting into trouble.
It's a borderline time paradox.
Yeah, it's like the doppelganger kind of principle, right? Yeah. When you know that a clone of you exists, the idea is that you can never exist in the same space. The double or the doppelganger will always try to kill you. It's like a thing where, it can't. It's like a jealousy thing. I don't know if it's a jealousy thing, but it's just like a whole theory, a whole concept. And so you start to kind of see how these people live recklessly because what's the penalty? The worst penalty that they have is they have to pay money to get another version of themselves made. And oops, like it's like a whipping boy, basically this clone of this double becomes the whipping boy for all the bad things that they do. So it's a really interesting concept. It kind of, to me, on a high level, on the surface, it's kind of a movie about, the doubles and these people, but on kind of like you scratch the surface a little bit and it starts to become this kind of like commentary on, to me,
it's a morality story. It's a morality
or just like how rich people can get away with anything, as long as you're rich enough, because the poor people where their family member is killed, there's really, like, honestly, if you think about it, what's the benefit of you being like the vengeance, right? Oh, okay, well, you killed my dad, so I get to kill you, but that doesn't bring my dad back. They're not duplicating my dad, and he's gonna be my dad, or he's not gonna, let's say he was a farmer, the guy that got hit. There ain't no, now there's nobody to work the field because all the kids are younger. So It's an interesting concept. It's just, I don't know, the characters, to me, all those characters just there's not a single one except maybe James's wife, and I would even kind of, I don't know if I could even say it about her, but nobody is likable. Like I don't feel bad for any of these people. Like you kind of have to put yourself in James' shoes to be like, this is really fucked up, but.
Well, the movie's definitely told from his point of view.
And he just seems like a bitch,
So I want to say this ahead of where I'm going to go with it.
Yeah.
I think Skarsgård and Goff both give knockdown amazing performances in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, whatever negative you can say about this, like, these two in particular acted their asses off for the entire, like, duration of this movie. And that's everything from just looking genuinely disturbed to just, like, taking big hunks of scenery and chewing it right through like giant holes in it. So they're both, as far as their performances, fantastic. Likeable is a whole different conversation.
Yes.
The weird thing about his wife, to me, is we find out later what happens with James's passport, but when she leaves, she's pissed off at James because he's going down this. He's essentially, it's like he's getting addicted to a drug, and she decides to cut bait. It's not a drug, but I guess there is drugs, but anyway, I digress. She leaves because she's seen him fall off the wagon, and she decides, fuck this, I'm going home. Why does she keep bankrolling all this shit? Because she's the one that's giving the money in this. Like, he doesn't have money. He's some, on his ass writer who's only got bankroll because he's with her, whose dad put his book in, 5 Barnes and Nobles that are still open. So I think it's weird that she continues to bankroll his descent into whatever this is. I also think it's weird that after she leaves pretty early in the movie, like this is like almost a 2-hour movie, and she's probably gone within a half hour or so of the runtime, roughly, right around there. And I know she pops up at the very end, but you really don't see her or much of her again for the duration of the movie, which is kind of bizarre to me. Like, if your wife leaves because you're having problems, like, you just disappear but keep funding debauchery. Sounds like a pretty good situation, I guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. No, I think that the other thing to think about is that the whole runtime, not necessarily like the real time runtime, meaning like chronologically, I feel like it's over a couple days. So maybe it's to the point where she doesn't maybe she just doesn't know that, because he has like a debit card or an ATM card, basically. When he goes into the first time he's in the police station, he uses like an ATM to withdraw all the money that he needs to pay.
Am I the only one who laughed at the ATM that like gives him, I don't know, like $2 million cash?
Yeah, shit ton of money. Yeah, I thought that was funny too. Like, oh, I guess there's no withdrawal limits
right
here in whatever it's called, Tolqa,
La Tigra or whatever. So anyway, did you feel like you were going to have a seizure at any point in this movie?
No,
because I feel like they tried. So
it almost felt there's a couple scenes where they have these like drug induced hallucinations, and there's a lot of flashing lights and everything, and that really reminded me in a way. I mean, it reminded me a lot of like 70s kind of horror cinema. You think of like, I don't know, maybe like Suspiria or something has kind of these strobing, flashing different colors, but it almost reminded me a little bit. That part of it reminded me of Mandy, where he's like tripping out, and there's all these flashing lights and just all these strobing and stuff. I was like, oh, I mean, I think it's probably more inspiration was taken from 70s horror cinema than anything else, or drug culture kind of movies. But yeah, it was like, whoa. But there's a scene where he gets I think it's actually the first time he takes this drug. It's like this. Drugs are illegal on the island, but it's a religious kind of exception that they get to use this one particular drug that the guards seem to be, like, all the workers seem to be not facilitators, but enablers of these things. Like, the cleaning people give them a gun. The guards give them this drug. Like, it's just all these random people that work at the resort that are enabling these people to act poorly.
That kind of wraps around to the overall concept of, like, if you're rich enough.
Yeah.
Whatever. So,
but I never expected to see scenes where I would almost misinterpret what was going on as to like internal porn cams, where they have like, oh, is that looks like a penis going into something. Like that's a weird.
It looked like a dick coming out of a butthole to me.
Oh, I thought it looked like those. I mean, not that I've ever watched porn before, but there's those internal cam porns where it looks like a penis is going in. And it's like, oh, that's kind of weird. There's like little weird body things where like a nipple, like the nipple opens and like green shit pours out of it. Ugh.
That might have been the grossest part of it to me, other than the whole suckling scene.
Yes, that's slightly disturbing.
Yeah, mostly because it just keeps going. Like,
yeah, that's the thing with these sex scenes or these orgy scenes or what the drug induced kind of scenes. They go on too fucking long. Like they just,
and like I said, this is, I think we watched the theatrical cut, which from what I've seen from the little bit of time that I had to look up stuff on this, there is a different version of this movie that went to Sundance and like the festival circuit. I guess that has an additional 19 minutes and it's mostly in those scenes. Yeah.
And this movie's an hour and 54 minutes, I believe.
It's basically a 2-hour movie. It feels it does, it's interesting enough to keep you engaged in that 2-hour. I'm going to call it 2 hours just for simplicity.
Sure.
It's interesting enough to keep you engaged. Like you don't feel like you're not checking your watch and being like, God, when is this going to end? Maybe some of those sex scenes that we're talking about, like the movie as a whole doesn't feel like that, but it does kind of leave you like, at least for me, it left me a lot of times, like I said earlier, kind of going, where the hell is this going? Like, what's the end game towards all of this? Are we just going to spiral for 2 hours, or is there like a proverbial light at the end of this tunnel that we're going towards?
Yeah, and watching this, I wasn't watch checking because I don't know. I don't know if it's right to say because I wanted to, but I was kind of a time crunch to watch this. Like I had shit I was doing, so I had to kind of watch it in chunks, of time. And
yeah, I had that too.
I felt like the last, I don't know, when it was at like an hour and a half, I was like, oh, okay, we must be getting pretty close to the end. And I checked and I'm like, oh, okay, there's another pretty much half an hour to go in this. It's one of those movies where you watch it and you're like, how are they going to wrap this up? Like, what is going to be, especially the scene, there's a scene where there's like a confrontation on the bus and on this vehicle. Yeah. And I was like, okay, we have like 20 minutes left. Like, what are we still gonna do that we haven't been able to do yet? And this was definitely, I don't want to say what the ending was, but the ending, it was one of those movies where as soon as the movie ended, I immediately went to Wikipedia to like look, did I miss something? Like, what? Okay.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's safe to say that we didn't miss something. That's just how it ends.
So that bus scene, and I mentioned like Mia Goth gets a amazing performance in this movie because she is about as like, I don't know what the clinical term is anymore for multi-personality, but she is like got every fucking personality under the sun. And that scene is right about where she really goes off the fucking deep end.
Yeah.
What do you think about her in that scene in particular? Did she go like to the point of annoyance, or is it just work because of this character?
No, I felt like it was annoyance. Like if I was the bus driver, I would have just driven through the cars. Like, really, get the fuck out of here. Like, you
could have knocked him off that cliff right there.
Yeah,
and been done with this.
Been done with the whole thing. Bye.
Yeah, 20 minutes off the movie. See ya.
Yeah, I just I want to reserve what I'm going to say for like my end piece because I kind of have a thing that I want to just mention about her in general. But I mean, she does a really good performance, but she is extremely unlikable. She's like a manipulator. She is.
I think that's intentional.
Yeah. Oh, no. I for sure. It's not that her as a person is unlikable. This character is extremely unlikable.
So it's not like comparing her to. I'm going to use the person I always go to. It's not like Sherry Moon Zombie where she's unlikable and she sucks. Like, she's really good at being unlikable in this movie.
Yeah.
So the other thing that really, this isn't so much her. This is movie like dumb shit. This is one of those because the script said so moments. The end of that bus scene, you see James trying to run away and he's running through a wooded area, kind of dipping and dodging between trees.
Yeah.
And he's down from the road. Like he goes down like a small hill and starts running. I don't buy for a second that she's going to shoot him. Like that she's going to hit him. That bolt's good. I mean, maybe if it ricocheted and hit from a weird angle, but it looks like she hit him dead on in like the calf. The way the
I think it was like
camera
thigh,
shows it.
But yeah.
I thought it was lower. But either way, I don't buy that for a fucking second. There's no way, like, again, not a guy who's like into shooting or anything, but I've heard from like people who are that like a running target is like impossible to hit or damn near impossible to hit unless you're like a trained marksman. The idea that he's at a different elevation and she just manages to hit that through a bunch of trees and shit and bullshit.
Well, to add on top of that, there is a scene earlier in the movie where there's like a bit of some gunplay and she can't shoot for shit. And yeah, in this movie, she's like I'm not in this movie. In this scene where James is running, she's like a trained marksman. Like she hits him, like you said, running a running target, trees everywhere. Trees. Yeah, and she's hitting trees next to him. I mean, it's not, it's nitpicking. It's not believable at all, and it's nitpicky. But yeah, I had the exact same thought. Like, there is no way she barely hit the guy in the other scene, like maybe like an hour before. I was gonna say hours, but an hour before, she can barely hit this guy, barely makes it out alive of this confrontation, and in this thing, she's just like the Terminator, RoboCop, for Christ's sake.
It is nitpicky, but at the same time, like, I feel like that kind of shit almost depends on the movie. Like, to use Kill Switch as an example, like, we watch Seagal fire bolts all over the fucking city in that movie. And he hits everything except the bad guy. So, I mean, if she's doing that and she's hitting everything in sight because she happened to pull out a gun, okay, fine. By this movie's, like, unbelievable standard, I'll believe that you hit him running through the trees and whatnot.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the precedent that was set in this movie. Like you said, we saw her erratically firing, like, at the ceiling when there was a guy right in front of her or whatever. So it doesn't, that scene, and I'm glad to hear that you thought it was bullshit too, because again, there's a lot of movies where you see people doing all this running target, like, it's movies. It's like you've mentioned, I don't know when, like, everyone shoots from the hip and it's like a trained marksman. Like, it's kind of like that, but it doesn't match the character that we've already seen in this movie. And that's where I was like, bull fucking shit. She's not hitting fucking thing with that.
It would be like the female, I don't remember her name, in Raw Deal. Like, I don't think she shoots a gun in that whole movie, and she picks up a gun and she's like a trained assassin. I mean, it would be like the same kind of thing. And shooting from the hip, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like we should just get the hot dogs, because
I was going to say, are there any other big things we want to get to? Because I don't want to, for who hasn't seen this movie, I don't want to ruin, like, the end for you.
And I think that we've done a pretty good job talking about plot points without talking about specifics. So if anybody's listening, they could tell us different, and they haven't seen it, and they watched it, and they're like, wait a minute, those two dickheads told us everything. I feel like we've done a pretty good job being vague enough about what goes on in the movie to not give it away, but kind of give you a general idea of the thoughts that we had. I don't want to get into too much into specifics, because I feel like this is, and maybe my hot dogs will kind of say that, but I feel like this is kind of a movie that, I don't know, you might want to watch.
All right. I'll go ahead and lead us off this time, because it sounds like you got more to say than I do. I would give this movie probably, this is right in the middle for me. This is 5 hot dogs out of 10 hot dog bloodbath clone goos. This movie, for me, it has, and I know it's a different Cronenberg, but this has a lot of the Cronenberg. If you like David Cronenberg and you like that weird kind of gross out, goopy horror concept movie, you're going to feel right at home here. So there's that. I don't want to go as far to say this is required viewing, because I don't think it's quite that, but for this kind of genre flick, it's worth watching to see that this type of movie, 1, can still get made, 2, exists in 2023, and 3, can push, I would say, I don't know if they're A-list actors, but certainly well-known actors like Alexander Skarsgård and Mia Goth to a whole different level that, I mean, we watched X, and I didn't really think a whole hell of a lot about Mia Goth in that. We've watched Barbarian with Skarsgård, and we've seen him in It and other shit.
That's a different Skarsgård, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah, that's Bill.
Oh, well, fuck him. Anyway, like I said, you see some really great performances, and it's worth watching on that alone. Just brace yourself for some grossness, because this movie is all the fucking goo all at once and multiple times throughout the movie. If you don't like that, this probably isn't for you. And like I said, for me, once I kind of got maybe an hour passing, kind of had a good, solid understanding of what the hell I just watched, I really don't feel a big desire to go back to this. Maybe that will change. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if I watch this again in, like, let's say 6 months, and kind of have a rediscovering of it and like it quite a bit more. But where I stand right now in April of 2023, I really have no desire to watch this again. And that's its biggest downfall, is it doesn't really make me want to go back to it.
Yeah, for me, I don't, after watching this, I don't really know what to think about it. I mean, I really do enjoy, I've mentioned it on previous episodes, I enjoy darker movies. I enjoy movies that are kind of like, what the fuck? What did I just watch? I like these kind of mind-bending movies, and I feel like it's done a lot now in prestige TV, and there's sometimes not payoff, but that feeling that you get watching a movie and you watch or a show and you feel like there's something bad that's at any time something bad
Impending
could just
doom.
happen. Yeah, the impending doom that just is looming over the entire movie. I think that the themes that I got out of the movie are more commentary on, like rich tourists that go to other cultures and they feel like they can get away with literal murder and exploit locals, stuff like that. The entire group of people, other than James' wife, which I mentioned earlier, I think are entirely unlikable. In my opinion, Mia Goth fits into that totally unlikable thing. I'm kind of a little worried because I feel like, and I haven't seen many of the movies she's been in, but I feel like she's getting really typecast into this role where it's like, yeah, you're playing this female lead, but you're super unlikable. Like, I can really only speak to X, and I know that, Pearl, I know she was a lead in that too, but I just feel like X, I didn't like her in that. I don't like her in this movie. She does a great job in this movie. I think she does leaps and bounds better than she did in X, but I didn't really like her. I like the themes of the movie. Like I said, I thought that the movie was a real kind of thinking movie, but I don't know. If anyone in the main cast was at least a little bit likable and not either a shithead or pathetic like Alexander Skarsgård, James' character, it would have made the movie better. At least give him more character than just being like a pushover or being, just like this total pussy, for lack of a better term, that just kind of, I mean, I understand he's kind of like in the middle of this mind fuck, basically. But I just wish he would have had a little bit more of a backbone. Maybe one of his doubles had a better backbone or something. But anyways, regardless, I got to give Infinity Pool, I'm going to give it 6.5 doppelgangers out of 11 hot dogs. I like it for kind of the WTF, the what the fuck kind of feeling about the whole thing. But it felt like there was something missing. I can't put my finger on what it was, but there's just something that I felt like it was missing. It does fit that whole kind of Cronenberg narrative. Again, not David, but what's his name? Brandon? Is that his name? Brandon Cronenberg?
I believe so, yeah.
Brandon, yeah. I feel like it fits that Cronenberg lineage, even if it's not the Cronenberg you're thinking of.
Cronenberg Sr.
Yeah.
We got anything
Yeah,
do we have anything? Yeah. That 12.5% starting to be effective. Anything to tag on here before we start to piece out on this one?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, it's just kind of, I don't agree with you that it has as much body horror as like a regular a David Cronenberg movie, but there are definite parts of it that are very graphic, disturbing.
I think for a 2023 movie, it does. I think if you compare it to like early like 80s movies in general, it's not that, but it's a different.
It's a different time.
It's a different feel. Like the body horror in this movie feels like gross and it feels sticky to me, for lack of better.
It's got
everything
that,
in this movie
ectoplasm kind of stringy, nasty feel.
Where like when I think, so for me, like when I think Cronenberg, I always go back to Scanners. That's the one that I always was like, in my brain for,
I think of The Fly or Videodrome. Stuff like Existenz.
So my point is, that's more like meaty, chunky, like 80s body horror stuff.
Yeah.
It feels like a generational difference to me.
It's more refined.
Yes. So, anything else?
Nope.
No? All right. Well, we're going to start wrapping this up here for the week. We will be kind of knocking out some listener requests. We have 3 or 4 right now that we keep getting asked for things, so we're going to deliver because, frankly, we've put it off long enough. So if there's anything you want to hear us talk about, whether it is a movie, whether it is a album, I'm not going to read a book, but a TV show, something, whatever.
Fucking books.
Booze. Fucking books. If there's something you want us to talk about, let us know. You can drop us a line on our site, which is crap.town, or on any of the social networks. We are at Dewey Podmonster. We reply there pretty regularly. Yeah, do that. If you could also share this episode, share any episode that you listen to, like, review, all that type of stuff. It helps us out immensely. Give us feedback. We always appreciate that. And after you do all that, go check out what Sean has going on.
I was going to say, too, if you guys are interested in doing watchcasts, you want to kind of watch movies with us, or we watch movies with you, I don't know how that relationship works, let us know, because we're open to it. We're kind of looking to do more of that kind of community stuff. But anyways, regardless of that, you can find all the stuff that I do, because I am the authority on Michigan craft beer. You can find that at youtube.drafttherapy.com. Lots of videos going back several years about different beers, different beer releases, different breweries in the state of Michigan. And now we're kind of focusing more on getting out and going to places and talking to people and seeing what they have to say about their beer. But you can also check in with me on all the social media networks at Draft Therapy.
Boom. All right.
Boom.
Boom.
10 minutes of silence. Boom.
Boom goes dynamite. All right. I think that's all we got for the week. So we will be back on a Monday or two, whenever. Just listen. Please listen.
You'll listen. You'll hear it on a Tuesday, regardless of when we record it.
That's right. So have a good week. Cheers. All right. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. With authority. Boom shakalaka. And boom goes the dynamite.